This is the first of a set of videos in which we'll be looking at how to make some basic shapes using the NX10 tool. The first uh, shape we're going to look at in this video, uh, which will be the focus of this video, is making a sphere. This video is an introduction to NX10, and in it we're going to look at creating some basic shapes using the NX10 tool. After invoking the tool, we'll get a screen that looks something like this. And the first thing we're going to do is go over to this icon under File that says New and click on that so that we can create a new file or a new drawing. And wait a few seconds and we get the next window to come up. And a couple things to point out in this window. There are a number of different options that we can select as far as the type of files that we create. We're going to be using the top one, which is the model, and we'll be using units in this first video of millimeters, but you do have the option to select millimeters or inches. The default is millimeters, and for now that will be fine. So we say OK, and what we'll do is we'll end up getting this blank screen that we can use kind of as our sketch pad. Now, the way we create objects in NX10, and the objective here is we're going to create three-dimensional models. So what we'll do is we will begin by sketching a two-dimensional shape, and then we will use the extrude capability and or the revolve capability to take those shapes and create three-dimensional objects with them. So the first step is we click on the sketch icon up here, and it's asking us what type of sketch. We're going to be sketching on a plane. There are some other options that we'll not be talking about right now, but we're going to be sketching on a plane. And so since we're sketching on a plane, we have to select which plane we want to sketch on. We have three choices over here. We could sketch on the YZ plane, the XY plane, or the XZ plane. For now, it doesn't really matter which one we pick, so we'll just pick this one and click OK. And now we'll see that the coordinate system revolves to give us a view of one single plane. And let's start with making a sphere. A sphere is a three-dimensional object like a ball. So in doing that, we'll click on the circle tool up here. And when we do that, we get a little dialog box that allows us to determine which method we want to use for selecting the circle. We can select it. We can create a circle by using or specifying the center and the diameter, or we can create a circle by specifying three individual points. So I'll leave it at the default. We'll say circle by center and diameter. I'll click on that, and now as I move the cursor around, you can see that the X and Y coordinates change. So I'll try to move it straight up, and so the X coordinate, if I did it perfectly, wouldn't change, but the Y coordinate would. And in a similar way, if I move it horizontally, only the X coordinate would change and not the Y. So for now, it doesn't matter where we put the circle. I'll just click an arbitrary point, and I've just located the center. And now as I move the mouse, so what I did, I left clicked to do that. And so as I move the mouse, you see that the size of the circle changes, that orange circle. And if you look, you can also see next to diameter, it is telling us what the size of that circle is. Since our units are millimeters, it's telling me right now that this circle is 22.9 or 22.2943 millimeters. And so I can click that. I can just arbitrarily look at it and say, I like that size, and left click like this, and now I've got a circle. Alternatively, do another circle. I could say I'll specify a center, and maybe I want a precise size for my circle. I want it to be 35.5 millimeters. So I can type in that diameter and click on it, and so I can create it either way. Now I don't need both circles for this um, demonstration. Now, so I'm going to delete, or I could delete it. I'll show you another capability that we have. But first, let me get rid of the circle tool. So I have a mouse with a scroll wheel. I just press down on the scroll wheel, and um, and that gets rid of the circle tool. So I don't want this circle. I could select it and delete it, or I could just hold down the Control and the Z, and Control Z is a nice feature. It undoes the last operation. So now I've got a circle that I'm going to use to make a sphere. So I created this as a sketch. Before I do anything else with it, I need to perform an operation known as finishing the sketch. And up here in the upper left with this checkered flag, like you'd have at an auto race finish line, I left click on that, and I finished the sketch. So I want to make a sphere. So what I'm going to do is I can do this a couple ways. I'll do it this way first. I'll go up here and select the revolve tool, which is, so I've got the extrude icon active. I click on this little arrow underneath it, click on revolve, and now it's going to ask me what curve do I want to revolve. So I'll select this circle, and it sometimes there's some ambiguity, so it gives you a choice. In this case, I'll just select the sketch. That's what I want. And now it needs to know what direction I want to revolve the circle around. Now, if I revolve it around the z-axis, up and down, it will revolve into a spherical shape. If I revolve it around the y-axis, it will kind of revolve this way. It's hard to see in 2 dimensions, into a spherical shape. But if I select the x-axis, it's not, all it's going to do is going to spin around that, it's going to spin around the center point. So I'll come over here to select the vector. I select this vector, and now you see this little set of 3 vectors, these purple vectors up here. I'll select the z-axis. Now it says specify a point. If I want to make a sphere, I want the center point of the circle. Nice feature of NX is that when I hover over the circle, that center point appears. So here's the center point. I click on it and give it a couple seconds to think, and it say OK, and now I've got a sphere. Now how do I tell it's a sphere? Well, another feature, another good reason to have a mouse with a scroll wheel is that I can click and hold down the scroll wheel. I'm going to hold down the scroll wheel in the middle of the mouse. So I've held it down, and now I'm just going to slide it to the left, and you can see that as I slide it, it rotates my drawing. If I slide it up, it'll rotate it in the other direction. So again, it's important to have a mouse with a scroll wheel because it really simplifies some of these operations. Another thing you can do with this is I can hold down the scroll wheel and the right mouse button at the same time, and now I can pan both back and forth and up and down with this drawing. So this is the first shape we make. I hope it's helpful, and that it helps you in your future endeavors with using NX10.